music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready?
The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it.
Attaboy.
Let me drive. I won't make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind? That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
I mean, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? I mean, come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
You gotta learn to trust something. Just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing's important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
Look out there. Out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes. Every gear change, every corner. Perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do, it's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to race
our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own.
Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Yes, and hello, folks. And it's been a long time since season one had been done. It was back in April, I think it was the end of April last year. It must have felt like a long time ago, but finally we are back and we have a much bigger grid than we had done before. And I cannot wait for this campaign to begin. And we have a totally new system for the Grand Prix World Series. New drivers join in, new teams join in, new team managers join in, and we could be in for a hell of a campaign. And if the first season was anything to go by, this season is going to be even special. And I cannot wait.
Yes, Tom, that's fantastic. We're looking forward to this. And apologies if there was a slight issue with my audio there. The microphone is now working, so apologies for that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Grand Prix World Series. This is the pre-season festival. We are looking ahead to Season 2, and we are in for an absolutely fantastic day. How the pre-season festival is going to work. We have the Tier 2 teams coming out this time. There is enough interest from Season 1 for us to go to a second tier of racing. And we have now 26 teams who are going to join us in action today as we race around Watkins Glen for 20 laps. So to accommodate the increase in entries, the series has introduced a two-tier championship that will include a promotion and relegation system. So Tier 1 features the 13 teams that competed in Season 1, with the car numbers for those teams based on their finishing positions in last season's Teams Championship. So BAR, as the team's champion, have the number 1 and 2 on their cars of Jean-Eric Verne and Sebastian Buemi. And Tier 2 obviously will feature the 13 new teams, and this is how it is going to work with regards to the championships and the promotion relegation system. Drivers will score championship points for themselves and their teams, with both the driver's title and the team's title at stake. And then at the end of the season, the three bottom teams in Tier 1 will be relegated to Tier 2 for Season 3, and then the top 3 teams from Tier 2 will be promoted to Tier 1 for Season 3. And here is a quick update as to the point system for you. It follows the same format as modern day Formula 1, 25 points for a win, 18 for second, 15 for third, and so on. And we also have the addition of a point for pole position and a point for fastest lap. And now, as it is going to work today with the pre-season festival, we have a one-off race for just the Tier 2 teams, and it is a completely randomised grid. There was no qualifying ahead of the race today. And at the end of the race, the finishing order will determine the race numbers for Tier 2. That is what is at stake here today around Watkins Glen. So the team that finishes first will win the number 1 and 2 for their team. The second team across the line will then take the 3 and the 4. The third team will take the 5 and the 6, and so on. There are no championship points on offer at this stage. This is merely a showcase of the new Tier 2 teams, the new entries into this season. And Tom, how do you see this Tier 2 race going ahead?
Well, it's a good opportunity for the drivers and the teams, to get a real taste of what's to come for the Grand Prix World Series in the races to come. We've got a 16 race championship coming up, which is going to be very, very exciting indeed. We've got circuits that were used last year, including Vancouver, which is going to be the opening round of the championship. You've got Buenos Aires in there, and you've got also new circuits that are joining the calendar, like Adelaide, for instance. And you've got the likes of, I think, Imola as well. Imola is another venue that the Grand Prix World Series will be going to. So we've got a lot of new venues joining the calendar, new teams and new drivers. And for the new drivers in particular, i.e. Adrian Sutil, will be starting from pole position for this showcase event. This is an opportunity for the likes of him and others to get a taste of what's to come for the year ahead.
Right, before we crack on with the race, we need to introduce you to all of the teams that will be taking part in Season 2 of the Grand Prix World Series. And let's start off with the reigning champions, the number 1 team. That team is BAR. They set the benchmark in Season 1 of the Grand Prix World Series, and their lead driver, Jean-Eric Vergne, took 4 wins out of 15 races last season to become the first ever Grand Prix World Series champion. Highly consistent, very fast, and I don't think anyone could deny, Tom, that he was a deserving champion.
And it was very, very close at the beginning. Nobody really knew who would come out on top overall, and Vergne was by far the most consistent out of them all, and the fact he's won 4 races, which is the most of any driver over the course of the season, he was most definitely a well-deserved champion. And pleased to see that Sebastian Buemi has been given a second chance as well. He missed the majority of Season 1, and I felt that it was rather harsh of him being demoted in place of Pascal Wehrlein, who didn't quite exceed the expectations that team manager Tom Bottorff would have been after. But I'm pleased to see that Buemi's been given a second chance and pushed for closer, I think, as well, because I think Buemi's going to be one of the talking points of the year, and he's most definitely, I think, he's going to be one of the championship contenders. So keep an eye out for BAR for this year, because I think they've got a good chance of doing as well as they did in Season 1.
With Nick de Vries in reserve, if either Jean-Eric Vergne or Sebastian Buemi aren't able to race for whatever reason, Tom Bottorff can call upon the services of his reserve driver Nick de Vries to step up to what is a race-winning and a championship-winning drive. That could be an amazing opportunity for the Dutchman if the opportunity so presents itself. And now the number 2 team here, and we've got a little bit of an interesting lineup for this one, as Manor has retained the services of the Season 1 vice-champion Brendan Hartley, 3 wins from Season 1 for himself. But Tom, his teammate is a bit of an interesting choice, Tom Cruise. And now we looked into this because we do have the eligibility rules for the Grand Prix World Series, and one of the rules states that a driver must have taken part in an official outing for a team, so be that a race, a young driver test, a free practice session, or an official test organised by the team. Now, with Tom Cruise, a lot of people look at him and think it will have been when he did his test run at Circuit of the Americas. That was a promo run, but we looked into it, and this was pointed out to us by Sam Hall. He was actually offered an official test by Red Bull at Willow Springs, and by the rules of the Grand Prix World Series, Tom, that makes him eligible.
Yes, and he's one of those strange ones, really, because as it was pointed out on our on the fandom page, we couldn't have Richard Hammond in there because even though he drove the Renault R26 once upon a time, it wasn't counted as an actual task. It was just more of a shakedown run. But the fact he was Tom Cruise was offered an official test by Red Bull at Willow Springs, the fact he makes him eligible, I think it could be one of the surprises of the season, Topher. Who knows? And going on to the team of Manor, Brendan Hartley, fantastic season last year. Didn't get off to the best of starts in Season 1, but recovered very, very well. And I think he only failed to finish once in the last 7 or 8 races or something, did Hartley. And the fact he's managed to maintain that consistency right up until the last race. He was the only other driver in the run-in for the title other than Jean-Eric Vergne. And I think he's got a point to prove this season.
So it's a very interesting driver lineup that Sam Hall has gone for. The experienced Brendan Hartley and Tom Cruise. A little bit of an unusual choice, but don't forget he is actually an experienced racing driver away from his acting commitments. Could he spring a surprise in Season 2? Let's find out. And in reserve for the Manor team is Dutchman Christian Albers, used to race for Minardi and Midland back when he was in Formula 1. He is their reserve driver and he will be willing to step in should Hartley or Cruise not be able to race. And moving on to the next team on our list, the third team out of Season 1, the third best team, Arrows, with Emma Butterworth at the helm, and she has gone for consistency with her driver lineup. Kamui Kobayashi taking 2 victories last season and was an early championship contender, but an unfortunate run of reliability issues dropped him out of the championship hunt. And Nico Hulkenberg has been kept alongside him as well. 4 podiums for a very consistent season for Hulkenberg, but not a race winner just yet, Tom.
No, but I reckon it'll be a matter of time before he does get that elusive victory. He has been qualifying very, very well, has Hulkenberg, but he just hasn't had the luck on his side. And what's going to be interesting for Arrows this year is that the switch from Alfa Romeo engines, which Emma Butterworth wasn't too pleased about with the reliability of, they've switched to Ford engines. Now, we've got, I think, the top 5 teams of last year all using the same engine. So that's going to be a real talking point as to how reliable the Ford engine is going to be in comparison to the others. But for Emma Butterworth, keeping Kamui Kobayashi, race winner, of course, alongside Hulkenberg, who's destined to win his first race in the Grand Prix World Series, they are going to be very much another team to look out for with the orange colour scheme on their cars. Lovely orange scheme on the Arrows. And, of course, Julian Palmer. Now, he's in the test driver role for the team. Can't remember if he was in the young drivers test at Brno, following the Brno race that we had last year. But hopefully that Palmer will get another opportunity at some point in a full-time position. Could they be the favourites to challenge for the title? Who knows? And Bridgestone, don't forget, Arrows are using Bridgestone tyres, unlike Manor, who are using Dunlop, and BAR, who is using Goodyear. So tie grip could come into play this season, Topher.
Well, it's an interesting point you raised about the top 5 teams all being with Ford engines. Ford supplying those top 5 teams, they're all proven teams, they're all, established teams in the Grand Prix World Series. Theoretically, with all having the same engine, it should keep the racing close. And then the onus is down to the team managers to then work on their reliability, to work on their power units, and that makes it a lot more down to what the team manager wants to put in instead of just the outright pace of the car.
Yes, and I feel at the moment that with the Ford engine, which proved to be the best engine out of all the engines last year, I'd be looking forward to see how others that we're going to go on to in a moment, how the other engines are going to pan out, likes of the Ilmor engine or the Lamborghini or the Isuzu or the Cosworth. That we've yet to really see a competition between engines in terms of who has the best reliability, has the most perform engine out of all of those. But yeah, it's going to be a real close one, I think, regardless of what engine or what tyre compound they're going to have throughout the campaign.
All right, Tom. Let's move on to your team, shall we? Because you are the team manager of Prost, and you had a very successful season last time out. 1 win each for Pedro de la Rosa and Jaime Alguersuari. And for that reason, them both being race winners and consistent podium finishers, you elected to keep them both on.
Yes, and they've done as good of a job as a better job than I thought they would do. And considering the reliability we had at the beginning of the season, we were absolutely nowhere near getting to the end of races at the beginning of the campaign. But I think probably from the 5th race of the season at Estoril, with De La Rosa's 4th place, that was pretty much the beginning of the recovery, as we were at the bottom of the Constructors' Championship at that point, and then recovering to 4th, which included those podiums and the 2 race wins, as you've already mentioned. I felt that was a really, really good way to end the season. And if that's anything to go by, I think we could well see Prost at the forefront of the grid with the likes of BAR, Manor and Arrows once again.
And you've brought in Felipe Nasr as your reserve driver. What was your thinking behind bringing him on in particular?
Well, we had a choice between him and Stefan Sarrazin. Now, Sarrazin and Nasr took part in the mid-season test at Brno, and both were relatively good. But I can only choose one, and I think considering that Nasr is the younger driver to Sarrazin, I felt he was probably the more viable choice. But that doesn't mean to say that Sarrazin won't get another opportunity again. It's just that, by the rules, we can only have one test driver each for each team. And considering the eligibility in regards to what drivers you can have for the championship, it's you just can't predict things at the moment. But I'm confident that De La Rosa and Alguersuari can have a consistent campaign as they did in season 1. But hopefully, better reliability will be on our side and pushing for more race wins.
Excellent. Right. Now it's time for my team. We're getting both of the commentators' teams out of the way early on here. And my team is Super Aguri. I've gone for Ford engines as well as the other 4 front-running teams and Firestone tyres for this campaign. Just something a little bit different for myself. And I've gone for a bit more of a Formula E vibe to my team. I've got Robin Frains on board, who took part in 5 races last season and took home a very impressive podium there. So there's no doubt I was going to keep him on. And Antonio Felix da Costa, he competed in 3 races for MasterCard Lola last time out. Did an impressive job despite having a couple of retirements, so I thought why not promote him to a main race drive. So that is my driver lineup there, and Oliver Rowland in reserve there. And Tom, don't say anything here, just to let you know, make me happy. How do you think the Super Aguri team's going to get on?
It's a question mark, I think, Topher. I mean, Timo Glock took 2 wins for your team last year, but had a really bad run of retirements as well, because I think he only finished like 5 times last year for Glock. Part of his decision to leave the Super Aguri team. But I feel with Da Costa and Frains, I mean, your Formula E approach, could well explain your lineup, your choice of lineup. I'm confident that Frains and Da Costa can have a good campaign. We've seen from Frains with that podium finish that he achieved in only his second outing at Fuji last year. And can he challenge for race wins? Now, that's going to be a real question mark, because I think there's going to be a lot of teams this season that are going to be challenging for wins in the Tier 1 category. And I think for Super Aguri, they've got to make sure they don't get relegated either with this new Tier 1 and Tier 2 system. Now, if they can finish in the top 10 in the Constructors, which is the most important thing to have, then I think for Frains and Da Costa, it'll be a fairly satisfying campaign, but they want to be challenging for wins at the same time.
Well, let's just hope they do have a campaign for my own sake. All right. So, moving on from my own team of Super Aguri, let's move on to Simtech with Scott Woodwis at the helm. And after Scott Dixon took part in a 9-race campaign for him last season, taking home pole position and 2 podiums, he elected to keep the Kiwi on. Massively successful as Scott Dixon, multiple championships in IndyCar, and he's now been given a fair crack at Formula 1, and he's now being joined by Australian supercars legend Jamie Whincup. Tom, what do you reckon to this lineup that Scott's gone for here, bringing in Whincup alongside Dixon?
I mean, I don't know too much about Whincup, to be quite honest with you, but we've seen from his days in supercars as well that he's fairly competitive. And I was actually quite surprised that Scott Woodwis decided to demote Van Dorn, because I don't think Van Dorn did that bad of a job, if I'm honest with you. I'd have been happy for him to keep Van Dorn alongside Dixon. I mean, if it was me, I would have kept Van Dorn alongside Dixon. But I think part of Scott's approach with the lineup is to see how Whincup does in a Grand Prix World Series machine, so that he can assess his choices for season 3 and beyond. As for Dixon, he had a stellar campaign. He didn't join at the beginning of the season. He joined from it was Po, wasn't it, that he joined from, and he got the pole position as well at Vancouver, and he picked up that second place finish in Po as well. So it shows that Dixon, who replaced Marcus Ericsson, who was there at the beginning of the campaign, it shows that Dixon's got what it takes to challenge here within the Grand Prix World Series with the likes of Verne and Buemi. And if he does well over the course of the 16 races, who knows where he could end up by the end of the campaign.
Well, how about we ask the man himself, because Scott Woodwis does join us in the commentary box. And Scott, it was a bit of an interesting choice, and to some people a bit of a surprising choice. You took on Jamie Whincup alongside Scott Dixon there. What was your thinking behind bringing on the Australian?
Well, I mean, if you look at his record elsewhere, he's had a stellar record in terms of, being behind the wheel of a race car. He's been a multiple-time supercars champion, and he is proven in his junior days in single-seaters, because he was Australian Formula Ford champion in 2002. So he can handle a single seater when he needs to. Obviously, this has got a bit more power. Obviously, he's handled a single seater and he's handled a car with 500-600 plus horsepower, but obviously not at the same time, it seems. So it'll be intriguing how he gets on, but I'm confident in his abilities. I mean, he wouldn't be the multiple-time supercars champion that he is without having some modicum of talent. So I think he should settle down nicely. I think that having Scott and team is a nice compliment, having both drivers from the oceanic sort of Antipodean area of the world. So I think that they should settle in nicely, and I think that they should make a nice formidable duo.
I reckon they will make a formidable duo, but talking about Stoffel Vandoorne as well, he did have his bad luck throughout the first season, but he was quick. So what do you feel as though was the factor that swayed you towards Jamie Whincup instead of Stoffel Vandoorne? How did you come to that decision?
Stoffel did have good results in the first half of the season, and he was quicker than Marcus Ericsson. But then when we brought Scott Dixon in, I think it was from Poe onwards, there was a significant increase in the level of pace that the car brought, and it wasn't just with the upgrades that we had at that point, but Scott was able to bring quite a lot from that, and I felt that he, over the course, this is no disrespect to Stoffel when I say this, but I felt that he brought a lot more consistency throughout the second half of the season compared to that of that Stoffel did. But Stoffel did manage to get some decent results, and he managed to pick up some good runs. I mean, if you look at where sort of the races that Scott did finish when he wasn't having bad luck, he picked up a second, a fifth, and a third. Whereas kind of Stoffel did have some decent results before that, but he had a lot more bad luck in terms of DNFs. So it'll be intriguing to see how Jamie stacks up to Scott, and of course, if there's the want to switch them around for whatever reason, then we'll go ahead and do that. But we need to see the first few races to see how that works out, and hopefully we've got a good car underneath us that we can use to build up from finishing sixth in season one. I think we've got a very good package, hopefully, and all we can do is see how the car and the drivers perform and see what comes to the fore at the first round. But I'm confident we've got a good overall lineup. The Ilmore engine was good at the end of the year, so yeah, we'll see. I'm quietly confident, but still know it's going to be a lot of hard work to try and beat everyone that's staying on for this year.
Well, Ilmore engine, and Goodyear tyres, a good car, a good driver lineup. Scott, we wish you all the best for the upcoming season.
Thank you.
Right, let's move on to our next team, and this one is AGS with Phil Kinch at the helm. A little bit of an interesting off-season for the AGS team, as Phil Kinch actually left the team following the conclusion of Season 1, but before Season 2 was going ahead, he decided, nope, I'm missing it too much, I'm coming back. So Phil Kinch taking over the helm of AGS again, and has gone for a very recent Formula 1 driver lineup, both Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon losing their Formula 1 seats at the end of the season just gone, and they've now picked up drives with AGS for Season 2 of the Grand Prix World Series. Tom, do you reckon their recent experience is going to count in their favour?
Considering that they're still fairly young, I reckon they could still be in the frame for podiums, I think. One thing to look out for as well is I've noticed that AGS will be running Ford engines and Goodyear tyres. And last year they used, let's just have a look, they used Mugen engines and Bridgestone tyres. So it's quite a changed team overall, Topher, with what Phil's going for. But I'm pleased to see that Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon will still be in the sort of racing or single-seater racing action of it all. And the fact that they couldn't, the reason why they're in this one and not Season 1 is because they weren't eligible for Season 1, considering they were racing full-time in Formula 1 last year. But, seeing them in the Grand Prix World Series is a privilege to see for the fans to watch overall.
The switch to Ford and Goodyear for Phil Kinch, possibly a statement of intent. He is already a race-winning team manager, with his Season 1 driver Andre Lotterer picking up the victory at the Marrakesh Grand Prix last time out. And in reserve this time, he has gone for Jasmine Jafar, the Malaysian who has tested previously for Mercedes. So I reckon he's got some good experience behind him should he be called up to replace either Kevin or Alex at the main team. Moving on to our next of the Tier 1 teams, it is Minardi, this time led by T-Pot at the helm of the Minardi team. And a very experienced driver lineup here. We have Mr. Le Mans himself, Tom Christensen, finally making his Formula 1 debut, albeit in the GP2 guise of the Grand Prix World Series. And alongside him, another very experienced Formula 1 driver, Jos Verstappen, Marc Genet, a race winner in Season 1, being demoted to the reserve role for the Minardi team. Tom, Genet, a race winner in Season 1, and yet he finds himself in the reserve role. Could he possibly be one of the perfect drivers to step up to a race seat should he need to?
I think it would be a good substitute, actually. I mean, we've seen from Janae last year in the opening rounds of the championship that he was right there, but I think he dropped away in the second half of the campaign when teams like Prost and Syntex started to find some form. It doesn't mean to say Janae's a bad driver, because he's not, because I think he's got it in him. But I think, like with Simtech, I think Minardi are looking at drivers just to look at them and to assess. I think with Tom Christensen, for his debut campaign, I think considering how old he is now, I'm not sure if he's going to be on the same pace as Jos Verstappen. It is, but it's the Grand Prix World Series, anything can happen. And, Christensen and Verstappen end up being one of the surprises of the season, then that'd be fantastic for the Grand Prix World Series. And Teapot, in case you're wondering, he's gone for Lamborghini engines and the Michelin tyres as well, which he did so in season 1.
So a very experienced driver lineup there in Tom Christensen and Jos Verstappen. Could they potentially be a dark horse for the title this season? There's only one way to find out by getting this season going. But before we do that, we must look through the rest of the teams. And next up, we have the Ryan Ferris-led Onyx Grand Prix, who has gone for an all-Japanese race lineup of Takuma Sato and Kazuki Nakajima. Nakajima making his debut in the Grand Prix World Series, while Takuma Sato, off the back of a very impressive stint in Season 1, 5 races, 2 pole positions out of those 5 races, but unfortunately no luck, reliability plaguing him when he was in race-winning contention. And we have Ryan in the commentary box with us now, and Ryan, I don't think there was any contestation in taking on Takuma Sato for a second season, given the pace that he'd shown.
Definitely not. He was absolutely rapid for us last season, just didn't quite have the luck in race trim. So hopefully he has a bit more luck this season and keeps some of that qualifying pace with him, because if things go as well as it did last season with his qualifying trim, then we could be seeing race wins from him.
And you also took the decision to demote Sebastian Bourdais down into a reserve driver role and bring on Kazuki Nakajima as well. What was your thinking behind that decision to put Bourdais into the reserve role?
Well, I think we needed a fresh start almost for this season, because Bourdais did show signs of consistency. However, he just wasn't able to extract the performance out of the car like Sato was able to. So we saw that Kaz Nakajima had put some very good times in during the Brno test. So we decided that we should take him on. Obviously, being a 3-time Le Mans winner, he's won the Super Formula twice, and he's also been crowned World Endurance Champion. So he's definitely got the credentials to be at the top end.
And that's alongside a 2-time Indy 500 winner in Takuma Sato, who also won multiple other races within IndyCar as well. A very decorated driver lineup you've gone for there, Ryan. And you've also gone with the decision of Isuzu engines alongside your Goodyear tyres. Isuzu, a little bit of an unusual choice in comparison to the rest of the field. Was that more to keep a theme within the Onyx team?
Well, we ran the Isuzu engine last year, and it gave us all right sort of performance. It obviously didn't have the same performance as the top end, but obviously the idea is to try and work with them and develop the engine as the season goes on. But then also it's a Japanese partnership with 2 Japanese drivers, so hopefully that has some sort of chemistry in amongst the team.
Well, we wish you all the best, Ryan. Let's hope that partnering of Sato and Nakajima along with Isuzu engines can be fruitful. Thank you very much, Ryan. And now, next up is the MasterCard Loader team. They tried to enter Formula 1 in '97, had a failed attempt at qualifying and were never seen again. This time, they're being run by Alain Charles, a French team manager, and he's gone for an all-female driver lineup of Simona Di Silvestro, the Iron Maiden, alongside Tatiana Calderon and Catherine Legg in reserve. And Tom, this is going to be a great advert for female racing drivers if this team is successful.
Of course, and if Di Silvestro and Calderon were to perform the Leicester City odds and actually won the title, then that would be a fantastic season for both, not just the Lola team and for Alan Charles, but for females in motorsport. Female drivers trying to succeed or trying to get more female drivers within motorsport. I think they could be one of the surprises of the season actually, and Alan Charles, who is a debut team manager as well for the Grand Prix World Series. I think this is going to be one of the teams to look out for, I think, in the second season of this particular championship.
they definitely could spring a surprise. Both Di Silvestro and Calderon, they are decorated racing drivers. They've won races across the courses of their careers. They're a lot better than some people give them credit for, and Di Silvestro, she was at one point on the verge of a seat in Formula 1 with Sauber. Unfortunately, things didn't go her way for her that time, but this time around in the Grand Prix World Series, she does have a race seat, and we shall wait to see how the MasterCard Lola team fares in this. Next up, onto a female team manager. We have Emma Featherstone of the BMS Scuderia Italia team, and she has hired the services of Andre Lotterer, the winner of the Marrakesh Grand Prix last time out, alongside newcomer Pietro Fittipaldi, bringing the Fittipaldi name back into Formula 1, and Guan Yu Zhao in reserve. This is going to be a brilliant lineup. We've got the mixture of experience with Andre Lotterer, one of the most decorated drivers of all time, alongside the youthful exuberance of Pietro Fittipaldi. And Tom, I don't know about you, but this is one driver lineup that I'm very excited for.
I am as well. I'm looking forward to see how BMS Scuderia Italia do in comparison to last year, because I don't think they had as good of a campaign last year, if I'm honest with you. I think James Courtney got pretty much the majority of the points for the team. And seeing Lotterer, I think I'm glad to see that Lotterer still in there in the Grand Prix World Series, because I felt he did as good of a job as he did. He was one of the surprises for me. And Pietro Fittipaldi embarking on his debut Grand Prix World Series campaign. He's going to be a lot's going to be riding on his shoulders actually to perform as well as what his grandfather did back in the 70s when he was a double world champion. But that's nothing to do with what we're doing here. This is a totally different ball game, and I think Pietro Fittipaldi will know that. And who knows, could BMS spring a surprise to the grid?
Well, should we get the opinion of the team manager herself? Emma, thank you for joining us. You must have been really pleased to have been able to acquire the services of Andre Lotterer for this season, him being a race winner in the Grand Prix World Series, but then also bringing on the youth of Pietro Fittipaldi, and I reckon you must be really pleased with this driver lineup.
Yeah, I'm definitely really pleased. It's a driver lineup that obviously I didn't think I was going to get, with being obviously my first season taking over the team this year. Very happy that Lotterer decided to stay with me. Obviously, hopefully we can adapt and build and get another win this season for him. He did quite well last season, so I was very impressed. And yeah, Fittipaldi coming in, young driver. Hopefully he can gain the experience off Lotterer, which is what I'm hoping, that they can sort of have, the chats and build up, and Lotterer teaching the ropes.
And BMS was one of the less successful teams in Season 1, but of course for Season 2, we have effectively started from zero. All teams have an equal chance of performing well here. With the engine and tyres you've gone for in Ford and Goodyear, with the driver lineup of Lotterer and Fittipaldi, what sort of results do you think you can achieve in this season?
I'm hoping I can do well, especially with the engine choice with Ford. Like you explained earlier, that the top 5 teams have gone with Ford, so hopefully we can kind of back off what they did last year and sort of not copy them, but sort of try and build on the success that they had. And tyre choice as well, Goodyear, quite reliable tyres. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it does work off, and hopefully I can improve the team this year, and Lotterer hopefully stays happy.
Do I sense a bit of a Mercedes Racing Point sort of situation here, copying off other teams? Well,
no,
what are you insinuating?
No. Don't insinuate anything like that, no.
Well, thank you very much, Emma. We wish you all the best for the upcoming season.
No worries, thank you.
Alright, moving on to the penultimate of our Tier 1 teams. This one run by Michael Gillespie. It is the Midland Racing Team, run last season by Ben Johnston, and this time taken over by Scotsman Michael Gillespie. He has taken on his fellow countryman Paul Di Resta in the lead driver role. He competed across the course of the 15 races in last season with some varied results, some consistent point scoring, and this time he is joined by Nicola Larini, the Italian, joining in the second driver role, and Sergio Sette Camera in the reserve driver role. And Michael, he joins us in the commentary box. You must be very excited with this driver lineup, because you've got the pure talent of Paul Di Resta there, a DTM champion and former Formula 1 racer, alongside the experience of Nicola Larini. How do you reckon this season's going to go for you?
Okay, can I first correct you? My test driver is actually Gianni Morbidelli, by the way.
Oh, I apologise, Michael. I did not get that memo when putting his graphics together. I will have that altered for you by the next race. Don't you worry about that. I do apologise.
That's okay. Okay, it happens.
So going back to the question, with your driver lineup of Paul Di Resta and Nicola Larini, how do you reckon your season's going to go? Because you've got a very experienced and very successful driver lineup there.
Yeah, we have a good driver lineup. I think both drivers have had experience of standing on the podium in F1, and obviously, I think Paul Di Resta's a promising driver, very underrated during his career in F1, and definitely has the potential to do well here. Larini also, he's shown maybe when he drove the Ferrari, he can get the best out of it whenever he's got the equipment underneath him, and can deliver like he did in that fateful Grand Prix in '94, which gets overshadowed by everything that happened that weekend. But still, obviously, good choices. And Morbidelli as well has also got experience of standing on the podium as well. And I think overall we have a good driver lineup and close to the front, I hope.
Well, hopefully this season will bring your drivers some more success. We wish you all the best, Michael. And let's move on to the last of our Tier 1 teams, which is Forti Corsi. They were the 13th and last team out of Season 1. And team principal Dave Goddard, he went in with the intentions of making the team as slow as possible. And after accomplishing that goal in the first season, he's now decided to take it a little bit more seriously. He's got Ilmore engines and Goodyear tyres, and he's completely revamped his driver lineup. Mika Salo going into the lead driver role there, a two-time podium finisher with Ferrari back in 1999, and Jeff Gordon getting his chance at Formula 1. And not everyone knows this, but Jeff Gordon has actually officially tested a Formula 1 car with the Williams team. And Tom, I reckon Jeff Gordon could be an absolute surprise here this season.
He could, and I think with 40 as well, I'd be tempted to see how well they do in comparison to last year. I mean, they picked up 9 points last year in a car that was so far off the pace in comparison to the others. And with this relegation rule that's been put in now, I think Dave's got a fight in his hands to make sure this team doesn't go down. And I think the fact that Jeff Gordon's been given an opportunity in the Grand Prix World Series is obviously very, very good. I'm sure NASCAR fans will be very, very familiar with his success over there. And I think with Mika Salo embarking on his debut Formula 1 season, Grand Prix World Series season. Sorry, I'm going back to the old days now, aren't I? But yeah, Mika Salo, I'm pleased to see he's been given an opportunity because I think even we maybe coming towards his like late 40s, early 50s, I think. But he's still got it what it takes, I think, in the Grand Prix World Series. And could 40 finish in the points regularly enough? Who knows? But I think 40's target, their primary target, is to make sure they finish in the top 10 to make sure they don't go down to Tier 2 for Season 3.
Well, I don't think they can really do much worse than they did in Season 1, if I'm being completely honest. 9 points and last place in the championship. Let's see if they can maybe at least get a podium this season. We'll have to see how the races pan out for those ones. Luca Badoa in reserve as well, a long-time Ferrari test driver. He's ready to step in should Mika Salo or Jeff Gordon not be able to race. And Tom, that was all of the Tier 1 teams, the already established teams within the Grand Prix World Series. So let's now introduce the Tier 2 teams for the Grand Prix World Series, the new entrants, starting off with the very recognisable and very famous Leighton House. Chris Cavani is at the helm of this famous team, led by Adrian Newey in the design team back in the day. Almost pulled out a massive giant-killing performance at the 1989 French Grand Prix. Ivan Capelli very nearly winning that race. He's gone for a very experienced driver lineup of Alexander Wurz and Robert Wickens in the race seats, with Australian IndyCar legend Will Power in a reserve role. Chris joins us in the commentary box. And Chris, welcome. Alexander Wurz and Robert Wickens, those are two very experienced, very fast drivers, both very accomplished within their respective series. What led you to pick those two drivers for this season?
Good question, really. I mean, like, I have massive respect for those drivers, but I'm still up for debate about Will Power, if I'm honest with you, because I understand how good all three have been, but Will Power for me, I just could be put in if I have to, but I like who I've got.
And you've gone a little bit different to the rest of the field. You are the only team to have a Judd engine in your car and Yokohama tyres. You're just trying to be different, aren't you, Chris? You just want to do something a little bit different for everyone else, don't you?
Well, considering that, well, certainly on the engine front, yeah, I have to have Judge. Think about it. I have to.
I mean, yeah, it's Leighton House. You have to. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But regarding tyres, there seems to be no grip difference between any of the tyre groups, and they're one of the cheaper options. So I think you're stupid if you haven't gone for them.
So a little bit more budget for the development of the car,
Exactly.
then, is that you're thinking?
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, hopefully that is a combination that will bring you some strong results, Chris. We'll just have to wait and see how it stacks up to the rest of the Tier 2 grids. Chris, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you, bye.
Alright, next up in the Tier 2 field, we see the return of HRT, the Spanish outfit who entered Formula 1 back in 2010. John Munro at the helm of this team, bringing in the super experience of Dario Franchitti, multiple Indy 500 winner, multiple IndyCar champion, and all-round legend. He could be a very strong contender for a championship assault this time out, alongside Adrian Sutil, another strong choice in the car there alongside him, Alex Lynn in reserve role. And Tom, this is a driver lineup that I reckon could go the distance.
It could, and he could be one of the favourites to go up to Tier 1. So keep an eye out on Franchitti and Sutil's progress this year. And I think John Munro, I don't think he can expect too much at this point because we don't really know until the season starts as to whether they'll be in the running for promotion. But yeah, I'm pleased to see that HRT are back on the grid and with their beloved black scheme with the drivers' first names on the side pods. You know, we're going to be very much familiar with the Dario and Adrian names on the side of it. It's going to be a really, really cracking campaign with this team on board.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on. John Munro, in the upgrade window before this race, has put all of his budget into power. So he has a very fast car, but he hasn't necessarily got the reliability. So will the car last the race distance? We'll just have to wait and see on that one. Next up in Tier 2 is the Ed Hunter team of Real, bringing in some super experience here as well. Mike Conway and Neil Jarney heading up the race driver front, with Oliver Turvey, long-time McLaren test driver, and long-time Formula E racer Oliver Turvey stepping into reserve role there. And Tom, providing that the car is up to it, this is another team that I reckon could do very well.
They could, and I'd be interested to know how much of the budget that Ed has put on the either power or reliability, because you mentioned with John Munro's HRT, and you're saying he's put a load of power on it, but is it going to be reliable enough? Now, I think Ed will be thinking more about getting to the end of races rather than trying to put a whole bunch of power on it and risking the car being unreliable. So I think if Ed's going to go for a promotion this season, I think he's got to make sure the car's consistent in terms of getting to the end of races, but performing very, very well. And I think when you got Mike Conway and Neil Lignani fairly young-ish, and I think that Real could be within the frame for at least a few wins this season.
Well, I think the driver ability is definitely there. We'll just have to wait to see how the car stacks up, as you said, Tom. So a lot of anticipation around the Real team. Is their car up to it? Ed Hunter has put the work into the development of the car, so we'll see how that pays off. The next team that we are going to look at in Tier 2 is the Life team, making their way back onto the Formula 1 grid. And I think possibly one of the most experienced driver lineups we've got on the grid, if not the most experienced, Tom. Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell. That's going to confuse some commentators across the course of the season, surely.
Well, I don't think it'll do to us because we are British and we do recognise both Brundle and Blundell. But, you know, the drivers rekindling their partnership with Brabham in 1991 and at Ligier in 1993. I think Brundle and Blundell could very much have increase that love affair between them within Formula 1, within the Grand Prix World Series into this, I should say. And I think Andrew Sampson will very much know that. And if they can work as well as they did back in the Brabham and Ligier days, I can't see why Life can do so badly.
And with Marino Sato in a reserve role as well, a very young, up-and-coming driver there. So should Andrew Sampson take the decision to not keep Martin Brundle or Mark Blundell on board, he has got a young hotshot there that he can turn to fill that void and potentially get some results for the team. We'll just have to wait and see how it turns out for the Life team, but a very experienced driver lineup there. Possibly could spring a surprise, putting all of their knowledge into their races today. And next up, we have the Pacific Grand Prix team, run by Carter McCollman, and very much like... my mind has just gone blank, Tom.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, there was another team earlier who had a very young driver lineup in that they were just promoted from their real-life Formula 1 jobs. It was AGS, taking Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon. Sorry, my mind went completely blank there. I don't know what happened.
It's okay, it happens.
So, AGS, they went for the recently dropped drivers of Kevin Magnussen and Alex Albon. Carter McCollum with Pacific has effectively done the same thing in hiring Daniel Kvyat and Roman Grosjean into his team. And again, this is a driver lineup that I can see fighting for promotion into Season 3, Tom.
Yeah, and it's a fairly young lineup as well. I mean, they've got Timo Glock in reserve as well, who's a race winner last year for the Super Aguri team with you, of course. And I think Pacific, with the choice of engine and the tyres as well, I think this could be very much a very, very, very consistent unit. I'm very confident, actually, that Kvyat and Grosjean can challenge for race wins and help the Pacific team get into Tier 1 for Season 3.
And with Timo Glock in a reserve driver role, he won 2 races in Season 1 and was brought on board by the Pacific team to basically help the development of the car and advise Daniel Kvyat and Roman Grosjean in their race seats. Do you reckon his input will be valuable here?
With Grosjean's or Kvyat's?
Timo Glock.
Oh, Timo Glock. I think Glock's input will be valuable. I think if Kvyat and Grosjean fall by the wayside, or there's a distinct performance between those two, I think Glock will very much need to be drawn in to help keep the team afloat and keep them in the frame for promotion. Because remember, Tier 2 teams would need to finish in the top 3 in the constructors overall to bag promotion to Tier 1 for next season.
Absolutely. Right, we've got a few teams left for you. Let's try and rifle through these, Tom, as quickly as we can so we can get on with some racing. Next up, Fondometal, headed by Welshman Ewan Gale, and he's gone for an all-Brazilian driver lineup of Enrique Bernaldi from Season 1, alongside newcomer Cristiano de Mata. And this is a team that might not necessarily be obvious as a front-running team, but they are both highly experienced, and Cristiano de Mata was very successful stateside before he came into Formula 1 back in 2003. Do you see this team being a bit of a dark horse, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. I think Bernaldi, I felt he was rather unlucky during his days at Midland last year, and with all the reliability not being on his side. And he had that one brilliant outing at Estoril where I think he was up to 6th place or something before he retired with mechanical issues. I think with de Mata, is going to be one of the stars of the season for me. Whether it's in Tier 1 or Tier 2, I think he's going to be one of the stars of the season. And even though Fondometal may be in the frame for promotion, I think one of the Tier 1 teams will be asking for his signature if he performs very, very well.
Of course, the teams do have the option of signing other drivers across the course of the season. They can negotiate with different team managers. They might want to bring in a new driver. It's all changes here in the Grand Prix World Series. Will this driver lineup be the same as it is at the end of the season? Who knows? Let's find out, shall we? Gaston Mazzacane in reserve at the Fondometal team, and they've gone with Cosworth engines and Pirelli tyres for their assault on the Tier 2 Championship. And next up in Tier 2, we head on over to Eurobrunn. And they are being led this season by David Junt, who has gone for Mazda engines and Falcon tyres. And he has acquired the signatures of Jose Maria Lopez and Marcus Winkelhock to lead the race team this season, with Robert Schwartzman in reserve. Lopez, I reckon he could be another dark horse for a championship assault this season. A very quick and very capable driver, is a 3-time World Touring Car champion.
Yeah, I could agree with that. And I think Lopez, who should have had his USF1 debut back in 2010, but never really materialised, he could be one of the favourite drivers to go for the Tier 2 driver title. It's just whether Marcus Winkelhock can live up to his name and get Eurobrunn into the top tier. And can they do that this season with Mazda engines and Falcon tyres? Who knows? Obviously, people know Marcus Winkelhock from his one-off appearance in Formula 1 at the Nürburgring. We know how that panned out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how Eurobrunn do, actually, because I feel that they will be in the frame for podiums. It's just whether they'll have enough reliability in there to get the results they need to put them in contention for promotion later in the campaign.
Reliability, obviously a very big factor in the Grand Prix World Series. You can have a fast car, but might not necessarily go the distance, as my Super Aguri team found out in Season 1. Not at all bitter about that. But anyway, moving on to the next team, we have Scuderia Coloni, which is headed by Chris Buxton. And he has gone for another very experienced driver lineup here. Perry McCarthy, Alan McNish and Jonathan Palmer for an all-British lineup at the Coloni team. A little bit of an older driver lineup here, Tom, but that experience could potentially count in Chris Buxton's favour.
It could. Alan McNish, a Formula 3000 driver back in his days, and his Toyota season in 2002. And he knows the industry very, very well in terms of racing. Both as a team principal for the Audi team in Formula E, and he knows his way around in the single seaters. So I'd like to see how McNish does this season. Perry McCarthy, I'm not really expecting too much from him personally, but as ever in the Grand Prix World Series, anything can happen.
Well, Perry McCarthy had a bit of an aborted start to his Formula 1 career in some ways with the very unsuccessful Andrea Moda team. So maybe this could be a second coming of Perry McCarthy. He might put in a successful season. Who knows? Let's find out. Just a few more teams left to go now. We move on next to Zach Speed, headed up by Mike Smith, who has gone for the very experienced Nick Heidfeld, a pole position sitter in Season 1, but unfortunately not a race winner across the course of his 10 races before he was replaced as Super Aguri by Robin Frames. He did show the speed, just didn't necessarily have the reliability in the car. And alongside him is a Brit, Sam Bird, very successful in Formula E more recently, also in the World Endurance Championship, former test driver for Mercedes, and Esteban Gutierrez in reserve. And Tom, providing the car is up to it this season, Zach Speed may be one to look out for with that driver lineup.
I think Zach Speed will be very much one of the favourites to do it. I really back this driver lineup very, very highly. And I think with Heidfeld, pole sitter, he was the very first pole sitter actually last year, wasn't he, at Kyalami, if you remember?
Yes, that's correct. He was the very first pole sitter, but unfortunately retired about 6 or 7 laps into the race.
Yeah, it wasn't very good for 6 or 7 laps for you guys, was it? But yeah, I think with Nick Heidfeld, I mean, he fell out of favour with you, didn't he, after the Genai race in particular? But I don't think he was that bad of a driver as you felt, Topher, or other team managers had seen. But I'm glad to see that he's back in the championship, and Mike Smith giving him that opportunity. Sam Bird, debut season for him. Can he guide the Zach Speed team to glory and put themselves in frame for a Tier 1 place in Season 3?
Well, he's got 4 more teams to be up against for that honour. And the first out of those remaining 4, Andrea Moda with Lewis Bassendale at the helm, bringing in Season 1 driver Taki Inoue, who formerly drove for the 40 Corsa team. Didn't really do that much across course this season, if we're being completely honest. A few points here and there, but for the most part was fairly anonymous, and his teammates will be Vincenzo Sospiri, who was part of the failed attempts to qualify by the MasterCard Lola team at the 1997 Australian Grand Prix. A little bit of an older driver lineup again for Lewis Bassendale, but Taki Inoue with experience in the Grand Prix World Series, maybe this could be his chance to shine, Tom.
It could, and with his experience in the Grand Prix World Series, I think that's going to help him a lot. I think if he came in as a debut driver, I think he would have been thrown him in the deep end, if I'm honest with you. But I think with Lewis Bassendale giving him the opportunity is great. And with Vincenzo Sospiri, who I felt was a highly regarded driver before he got that appearance with Lola, which didn't quite go to plan in '97. But I feel that he's got a good chance to do well in this particular championship. I'm not expecting too much from Andrea Moda as a team to get promotion, but who knows?
Well, Lewis, he sent us a text beforehand. He's not able to join us in the box, unfortunately, but he did send me a message earlier simply saying, as Andrea Moda, we are ready for a new season. We have 2 great talented drivers and a well-designed car, so I'm very hopeful for at least 1 or 2 points finishes. Well, will that happen? We'll have to wait to find out. Who knows in the field that is so competitive for this season. We have 3 more teams to get through now, so let's just quickly rifle those off for you. Force India, with Ed Spencer at the helm, and he has gone for Al Unser Jr., who's a bit of a surprise entrant for me personally, Tom, being one of the elder statesmen of the series, alongside Alex Zanardi and Jack Aitken in a reserve role. And this is a bit of an interesting driver lineup for me, Tom. Alex Zanardi, we all know how talented he was when he was back in Formula 1, not really getting the opportunity to shine as well as he could have. But Al Unser Jr., very experienced stateside, could he maybe, spring a few surprises even at the ripe old age that he is?
I was personally surprised that Ed has gone for him, actually. I thought he would have gone for someone a little bit, significantly younger than him. As there are plenty of drivers out there that Ed could have gone for, but yeah, he's gone for Al Unser Jr. I think Alex Nardi, that's a very understandable one. I mean, Alex Nardi, very experienced in Formula 1 back in his days with Minardi, Lotus, and of course Williams, where He didn't quite live up to his expectations, but I think he was given a very dogged car, to be quite honest with you, with the Supertech engine back in those days. But I think with Force India, with Mugen engines and Michelin tyres, could they spring a step to the grid? Can they get promotion? I'm not 100% sure, but we'll have to wait and see on this one.
Well, if you thought Alonso Jr. was a bit of an older choice for race seats here, check out this next driver lineup that we have, Tom. The Modena team has gone for Scott Speed alongside AJ Foyt in his 80s, back in Formula 1. He is, of course, eligible for Formula 1 as a result of having competed in the Indy 500 back when it was a part of the Formula 1 World Championship. So that does indeed make him eligible. And yeah, I think he's 85 now, I think, Tom, and a very unusual choice there from Paul Twemlow. But with all of his experience, do you think he still has it?
I don't think so. I think AJ Foyt's going to be. I think it's going to be very much up against it. I think he'll be there to pick up the pieces fortuitously, and I think with Scott Speed, I think he's got a good chance to do well. I do back Speed, and he'll live up to his name, literally. Yeah, I think Speed will do well. Foyt, I don't back him to do it, but who knows? I mean, I could be proven wrong, but Foyt is not Grand Prix World Series material from what I know, but he's not raced yet. So yeah, we'll see. But I think Foyt's going to struggle in his debut campaign, and with Hans Binder in the test driver position, he'll be there to step in should Foyt struggle.
Well, we will have to wait and see on that one. I think I do have to agree with you, Tom. Foyt might not be up there at the sharp end, but there's no harm in finding out, is there? Right, on to the last of our teams in Tier 2. The last entrant, it is the LaRousse team, headed up by Will Knight, going for Lamborghini engines and Pirelli tyres. Alexander Rossi, a veteran of Season 1 with one pole position to his name at the Marrakesh Grand Prix, alongside GPWS newcomer Callum Ilott, with his fellow countryman Max Chilton in reserve. And we have Will Knight here in the commentary box with us. Will, a good acquisition in getting Alexander Rossi on board. He would show himself to be very capable in Season 1. Alongside the Formula 2 starts is Callum Ilott. You must be very excited with that driver lineup you've got on your hands.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I was quite surprised that no one actually took the option on Rossi. He's a very capable driver. He showed his worth in Formula 1 and IndyCar. And frankly, in my opinion, Callum Ilott should have probably been the 2020 Formula 2 champion. He had some really bad luck overall in the season. I even talked to Tom about this in terms of my opinions on it. And frankly, I was quite surprised when he was available.
Well, available he was, and you've managed to get him onto your seat. And with a driver lineup like that, are you expecting to be at the sharp end?
I mean, I would hope so. Obviously, you would never expect to be low down on the grid. You would always want to be high up in the pecking order. You know, you want to win. That's the reason why we're in this. And I think as well with my reserve driver, in terms of the lineup that we've picked, I think we're going to be a well-oiled machine in order to fight for the championship.
Well, both of us in the commentary box wish you all of the best, and we will hope to see some strong results for Rossi and for Ilott. I think both of them will deserve some strong results this season. So, Will, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Right, Tom, that is the entire grid. And just to summarise all of that, we've got some very strong driver lineups here. Some unusual choices across the field, but overall I think we're in for a very competitive season, Tom.
And I couldn't agree with you anymore, Topher. And I think this Watkins Glen race, even though it may feel like a shakedown run, it's gonna give a little bit of an indication to what to expect for when the season does get underway at Vancouver. And you know, there's not much more for me to say. I'm just edging for the season to get underway, if I'm honest with you.
Well, Tom, shall we get it underway?
Yeah, I could do with some racing.
Excellent, let's get to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have 20 laps of Watkins Glen for you for this pre-season festival. The results of this race will determine the driver numbers for Tier 2 for the upcoming season. And with this one, we're going straight into the race. There's no qualification. The grid has been randomly allocated. And we can now reveal to you that on pole position, it is Adrian Suttil of HRT who has been randomly allocated into pole position alongside the Leighton House of Robert Wickens, a very strong first row there between those two. Jose Maria Lopez will be third alongside Callum Ilott. Row 3 made up of Alexander Rossi and Sam Bird. both of the LaRousses up in the top end of the field there in 4th and 5th. Row 4, Roman Grosjean ahead of Nick Heidfeld, and then Blundell in 9th place ahead of Daniel Kvyat in the Pacific in 10th. 11th place, Mike Conway ahead of Perry McCarthy. Marcus Finkelhock and Dario Franchitti make up row 7 ahead of Alexander Wurz and Scott Speed. Neil Jarney alongside Alan McNish on row 9. Martin Brundle in the Life ahead of Cristiano D'Amata in the Fon Metal on row 10. Row 11, Alex Zanardi and Vincenzo Sospiri. Alonso Jr. in row 12 ahead of Enrico Benaldi. And the last row of the grid is AJ Foyt and Taki Inoue. That is your grid for the pre-season festival. And Tom, just looking at that grid there, who do you reckon is going to come out on top here? Just a quick answer from you.
I'm going to say Suttel because of his recent experience in Formula 1.
I think I might have to agree with you on that one there, Tom. Let's find out, shall we? Let's go down to the grid. Waiting for that to load. Here we go. Riding on board with Adrian Suttel starts off the race. Waiting for the 5 lights to go out. Suttel ahead of Robert Wickens, Jose Maria Lopez and Callum Ilott in the first 2 rows. Alexander Rossi in 5th and Sam Burnett 6th. We're now waiting for the lights to go out and we can go racing for 20 laps of the Watkins Glen International Circuit nearby to New York in America. Waiting for the lights. They're on for a long time. The drives are being held for a long time. Still waiting for the race director to get this race underway. And we are away. Adrian Sutton leads off the line in first position ahead of Robert Wickens. Robert Wickens getting a little bit of a better start than Sutton there by the looks of it. He's looking to get up the inside of Sutton already. And yes, he is through. Robert Wickens getting a better start than Adrian Sutton off the line. Callum Ilott up into 3rd place ahead of Jose Maria Lopez on the run down into turn 1. Robert Wickens already got an advantage there ahead of the rest of the field. People might have punching up a bit, just so I can see no carbon flying around. And looking through the back, a little bit of nudging down there. Looking at Vincenzo Sospiri now in 22nd. He's nudging the other Leighton House off Alexander Wurz there. A little bit of marching down the turn 1, but it looks like everyone has made it through safely and top. Wickens beating Adrian Sutton off the line.
Yes, indeed. Sutton getting a really, really poor start, dropping to 3rd behind Callum Ilott. Field, almost like gridlock going into turn 1, but everyone is through safely, and the field through the open event up the hill there. Seen some amazing moments back in the days of Sir Jackie Stewart and co. But this is a fairly decent start for the drivers, trying to find grip wherever possible and trying to find areas where they can overtake. And I think we'll get to see it in the next chicane as they approach in. Here we go, look.
And that was Callum Ilott who's made his way up from 4th on the grid. He's already challenging for the lead on Robert Wickens, not able to make it through into the chicane there. Wickens holding strong in 1st place, but Callum Ilott, he's had a rocket start, and these two already falling gap ahead of Sutton and Rossi. Lopez is down into 5th place from 3rd on the grid. Grosjean has dropped down a couple of places down into 8th place as well. But up at the front it is the Canadian driver Wickens in the Leighton House who holds the early advantage, with Callum Ilott already lining him up for an overtake here.
He does look, and he's just coming out of the hairpin. Look, I think Callum Ilott's probably a bit too far back to have a go at this next right-hander here, and Wickens just protecting his line. And he keeps his nose ahead there of the Brit. And Adrian Sutton under pressure from Alex Rossi behind him, with Jose Maria Lopez not too far back. Nathan Freifeld, Sandberg, Roman Grosjean, Mike Conway and Mark Blundell running out the top 10. Now, for those who have just tuned in, it's the first, in case you're wondering what this race is, this is to determine the race numbers for each team of the Tier 2 teams for the season ahead. This is not counting for points at all.
And just to cut across you there, Tom, Callum Ilott is having a look at Robert Wickens, and looks like he's going to take the lead. Yes, he does. Callum Ilott makes the move on Robert Wickens and moves up from 4th on the grid into 1st, and we're not even into the 2nd lap yet, Tom. A fantastic start there from the Brit, showing his worth in the world of Formula 1.
Indeed, and if he's not got a place in Formula 1, why not have a go in the Grand Prix World Series? And Callum Ilott beginning to showcase his talent already. I know it was a randomised grid, but it's nevertheless great to see the young Brit in front there for the LaRousse team. Robert Wickens following suit. He'll be wanting to get back ahead, but as you all know, it's only just a preliminary event. for the teams to give them a good taste for what's to come in the season ahead, beginning with Vancouver later in the week or next week or so. So yeah, Caroline Lott ahead and Adrian Sutherland on the starting straight behind Robert Wickens, side by side going into turn 1, and still get the job done there and beginning his recovery from what was a very poor start there for the German, and now he can go after Ilott.
He's certainly making up for lost time, and here's Adrian Sutherland. A little bit of a ball gets away from pole position, dropped down to third behind Ilott and Wickens, but he's now working his way back up through the order. And in case any of you are wondering about pit strategies for this race, we have agreed with all of the drivers beforehand that there will be at least 1 or 2 pit stops per driver in this, as everyone's got very low fuel loads, just to see what the cars can do in their absolute fastest race tracks. I do expect some pit stops out of this race. Pit stops in this series have always tended to throw up the results a bit through into different strategy elements. Some drivers in the past getting held up in the pit lane, some unsafe releases and getting penalties as a result. So we do have that strategic element in this race today. And now Jose Maria Lopez is behind Robert Wickens. Wickens was very fast off the lines getting to the lead, but now seems to be falling down the order again. Wickens now under attack from Jose Maria Lopez, with also Alexander Rossi and Nick Heidfeld joining them for company as well, getting a bit of a gaggle of cars here for third place. Meanwhile, at the front, Callum Ilott and Adrian Sutherland building up a bit of a gap. But to me, it looks like Jose Maria Lopez is making his way through the field as well. Once it's gets up to the back of Robert Wickens, is he going to make an overtake at the next corner? Let's stick with him to see if he does indeed make the move. Also behind him, we have Nick Heidfeld lining up Alexander Rossi. We could be in for a double overtake here. Looking at Robert Wickens coming down into the hairpin, and Lopez pulls out a slipstream, and he's going to do the same move what Callum Ilott did to Wickens earlier. He's made his way through behind him. Heidfeld also makes his way past Alexander Rossi. A fantastic overtake there from both those drivers. Some double action for you down into the hairpin, and Wickens from second to first to fourth.
Yeah, he's not had a good lock off there as he and he's fallen back into the clutches of Nick Heidfeld, who's the next man behind him, and you can see Adrian Sutherland beginning to reduce the arrears of Callum Ilott in front of him. And then you've got Lopez sitting quite comfortably in third place at the moment. He'll be going after those two. As you can say, as you said earlier, Robert Wickens just beginning to drop away now, and you can see Alexander Rossi in 6th place ahead of Grosjean and Bird, who are another couple of seconds ago.
Well, coming now onto the third lap, 2 laps completed as Callum Ilott's fastest lap is beaten by Adrian Sutherland. Sutherland is closing down on the grid here. Let's give you a quick run through the top 10 of those 2 laps. Callum Ilott leads ahead of Adrian Sutherland. Lopez has taken third off of Robert Wickens, while Heidfeld is in fifth ahead of Alexander Rossi. Grosjean in the Pacific is in 7th place ahead of Sam Bird. Mark Blundell running very well in 9th place in the life, and Mike Conway 10th ahead of Daniel Kvyat, who has actually just been overtaken by Perry McCarthy down into the first corner. So Kvyat, he was expected to be one of the top drivers for this season, but he's actually falling down the order, with Perry McCarthy and Maloney making the move into 11th place.
I can imagine pit strategy is going to play a role in this one. And as you can see, Kvyat's just dropping back a little bit as well, and he's got Scott Speed right behind him. I'd be interested to see if Speed can get alongside Kvyat for when they come down to the chicane, which they are going to be doing now. As you can see, an overtake happening. In fact, 2 overtakes happening behind the top 3 or 4.
The action all around further down the field. What moves have we got going on here? Grosjean is up into 7th place as Bird has dropped down into 9th place. He's lost out on a couple of positions. Blundell up in 8th, Grosjean up in 7th. We've got some proper gaggle of cars here for 6th place. Alexander Rossi at the head of that field. Grosjean in the Pacific looking to make his way through the field again after losing out positions at the start. And we could be in for quite a few overtakes here if we stick with this one of Alexander Rossi. It looks like Grosjean is lining up the American for an overtake in a few corners' time, while also having Blundell and Bird to contend with behind them. So this is going to be a very interesting battle. Up ahead of them, looks like Nick Heidfeld is now lining up Robert Wickens. Wickens dropping down the order from his lead earlier on. And we're now heading towards where drivers' favourite places to overtake are. Rossi has been giving slipstream to Grosjean, Blundell and Burden. Up in front, that is Nick Heidfeld making a move on Robert Wickens for 4th place. Wickens falling right down the order, not having a good race so far, while Grosjean makes it past Alexander Rossi into 6th place. Now on board with Adrian Sutil, who has caught up to the back of Callum Ilott, only half a second behind Brett. Now could he be challenging for the lead soon?
Could do. He's right behind me as well. Martin Bundle locks up there in the what I believe is the life. Correct me if I'm wrong with the team thing. So it's going to take some time for me to get used to which kind of scheme represent some of the teams. They look quite similar, some of them, to normal Formula 1 cars. But I'm really liking the look of the Sax Speed in particular. Topher with Nick Heidfeld in there. It's going to look like a really outstanding machine with the West Tobacco brand on the car. So Adrian Sutil sets a new fastest lap. That's most definitely going to help him catch Callum Ilott in front. And Robert Wickens very much falling back. But the good news for Sutil's into the lead now.
Sutil into the lead. Let's go and find that. Adrian Sutil has indeed taken lead off of Callum Ilott. Let's have a look at the replay of that. And coming out of final corner, he's got a good exit out of there, has Sutil, lining up Callum Ilott in the LaRousse, and he's going to make the move down into turn 1. I imagine this will be a textbook overtake from Adrian Sutil. Indeed, he pulls out of the slipstream, outbrakes him down into turn 1, gets the turn-in point, and Adrian Sutil, having dropped out of the lead from pole position earlier on, has now fought his way back through. He now has a clear air in front of him to basically make up some headway ahead of the pit stop time.
Yeah, and if he starts to pull away now, he'll build up a comfortable cushion over Ilott and Lopez and Cope. And just looking further down the field, see Scott Speed with Fiat in the Pacific there. Bert's in trouble there by the sound of it.
Yeah, we have a slowing Leighton House and Alexander Bertz. He has a transmission problem. That is a shame for the Austrian, who becomes our first retirement of the season. One Leighton House down, while the other one currently runs in 5th place. That's not going to do Chris Cavalier any favours.
There's another car in trouble as well, off ahead of Bertz.
Another driver in trouble ahead of Bertz. Let's find out who that is. Didn't quite see any problems there. Let's have a quick look at the replay. So they've all passed Alexander Wurz there. Alex Marley in the Force India. Looks like he was just a bit of a gaggle cars, maybe all tripping up over each other. Taki Inui goes through as well. So it looks like everyone else is currently running smoothly. But Alexander Wurz unfortunately dropped out of the pre-season festival with a transmission problem.
Yeah, it's a shame there, but at least it's happened in this event and not in the Grand Prix World Series season. So there's some reliability woes there for the Leighton House boss Chris Cavani. He's got some problems to sort out before the first race in Vancouver. So as Wurz gets moved away by the marshals there, and you've got Robert Wickens up there in 5th place, in with the only Leighton House in the running. Adrian Sutil, half a second clear now of Callum Ilott in 2nd place. Ilott on board there in the LaRousse. His top speed now, who is still battling with Danica Fiat. As you can see him move further up ahead. Is that Harry McCarthy up the inside of Mark Blundell? Let's have a look. Sam Bird losing the place to Blundell actually.
It's Mark Blundell making a move on Sam Bird, the Sax Speed dropping down a place into 9th. We still have this gaggle of cars forming here. We've looked like we've got a few more possibly joining as well. Daniel Kvyat currently on the back of that, with Scott Speed maybe also joining in later on as well. Plenty of action going on down the fields here. And at the front, Adrian Sutil now has a gap of half a second to Callum Ilott, while behind Ilott, Lopez is closing right in, and we could actually see an overtake here. So let's follow Ilott and Lopez down to turn. Lopez already pulling out of the slipstream. He was that close to the back of the LaRousse. Heading down into turn 1. Is Lopez going to outbrake Ilott for 2nd place? It looks like he is. Jose Maria Lopez moves up into 2nd place in the Europe run, with Sutil now coming under attack from a new challenger. Lopez moving up into 2nd place. Ilott took the lead earlier on from Robert Wickens, now down into 3rd place again. We've got plenty of changes for position here, Tom. This has been fascinating so far.
It has, and we've still got a long way to go yet. It's a long lap as well. I mean, people thought, 20 laps was going to fly by, but on this Watkins Glen layout, it's going to be a lot longer than people think. So there's plenty of time to go. Yeah, we've still got pit stops to come, but Lopez up into second place there in the Eurobund. And then this is Dario Franchitti in the other HRT. His teammate Adrian Sutter leading the race, and this is Franchitti back in with Neil Yarney as they approach the chicane as they come towards us. So many it's a festival, but could Watkins Glen be a future venue for the Grand Prix World Series?
Well, it has been talked about as joining the official calendar, and while the calendar for Season 2 was already set a long time ago, when it came to the pre-season festival, we figured why not give Watkins Glen a go? Let's see how this track fares with these Formula 1 cars, and so far, Tom, I'm absolutely loving this. Myself and a few other people, we've already talked about Watkins Glen as being a hopeful circuit for real-life Formula 1. How brilliant would it be if Formula 1 went to New York around this fantastic circuit they've got? Will that actually happen in real life? Who knows? I mean, Formula 1's already been talking about Miami as a potential future Formula 1 venue for the American market. But Watkins Glen, I think, is one of those circuits you can always count on to produce some fantastic racing.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, can modern-day Formula 1 cars race there? I mean, we've seen in the 70s, but, you can't compare history to what it is now. The 70s was, 50 years ago, or nearly 50 years ago, and, Formula 1 has evolved massively since then. And I'm not sure that today's Formula 1 cars would be able to race as well as people want them to, but who knows, why not give Watkins Glen a go? But I think it's an FIA Grade 2 circuit is Watkins Glen, in case unless I'm mistaken, but I wouldn't mind Formula 1 racing at Watkins Glen again. It's just the fact that, with the pandemic, if it's taken over in America in particular, it isn't great, but I wouldn't mind, betting on Formula 1 racing in Watkins Glen in the future once it's ready to be hosting events again. I mean, does it still race? Does NASCAR and Champ Car still race there? I don't know. I mean, you may have to fill me in on that.
I think NASCAR does on occasion, but I'm not completely certain on that one. We probably have to look that one up, do our research on that one. But looking back at the racing we've got going on here, Sutil now has a gap of 1.1 seconds over Jose Maria Lopez, who we now ride on board with. And is this Alexander Rossi going slow? If Rossi now has a transmission problem as well, and that is a real shame for the American at his home event. He was running very strong up in the points, and it is an unfortunate gearbox issue for the LaRousse. That is a real shame for Rossi. He drops out of points, and that now promotes Mark Blundell up into 10th place and into the final so-called points paying position. There aren't any points on offer here, but it puts him up into the top 10. Alexander Rossi unfortunately pulling off to the side of the road there.
Yeah, it's a massive shame there. Not a good omen for Callum Isle either. That's one of the LaRousse cars out of the race. And that's one of the problems, I think, with Watkins Glen. When drivers are having problems going up the hill there, it's a lot. You're going to see drivers having to take quite evasive action. But when you've not got any space for a runoff on that part of the circuit, it's going to cause quite a few problems for the other drivers if you're trying to dive out of the way of an alien car, like what Rossi's done, and with Hertz earlier. So, yeah, that's probably one of the backdrops of this Watkins Glen circuit.
It is a high-speed circuit. There is a lot of power required around here, a lot of time spent at maximum throttle. A little bit of a car brake, and as you say, going up the hill, that can put a little bit of strain on the engine. But how is that going to affect Callum Ilot's affairs, seeing his teammate drop out with a transmission issue? That is now going to be sticking at the back of his mind. And meanwhile, Perry McCarthy there coming under attack from the Pacific of Daniel Kvyat. Looking to move up into 8th place. Kvyat was overtaken by McCarthy earlier, and now the Russian wants that position back on the Englishman, and they want to progress further up the field as well. Callum Ilott dropping a little bit further off the back of Lopez now. He's a second behind. He's got to be careful not to slip into the clutches of Nick Heidfeld and Robert Wiggins behind him. And here's Alex Nardi down in 18th position. He's having a look at the back of Dario Franchitti in the HRT. Franchitti I would have expected to maybe progress a bit further up than he is from 17th place. And Callum Ilott is in the pits. Let's go and find him. Let's see how long this takes. 2 laps of fuel left there, so pit stops are now starting. The LaRousse team will get to work. Is this going to be a 1-stop or a 2-stop? It looks like it's going to be a 2-stop for Callum Ilott, only putting in 8 laps of fuel into the car. And the team are going to work on that. make sure they can get him out into as clear air as they can. Robert Wickens is also into pits, as is Marcus Finkel. He's also in the pits. And this is going to shake up the order a bit here as we see the pit strategies play out. Some drivers will be on a 1-stop, some will be on a 2-stop. And Callum Ilott exits the pits. He's got a bit of traffic there, down in 16th position. So that is Taki Inoue and Enrique Benaldi in front of him. He should be able to clear those without too much issue now, being on the fresher tyres. And I imagine both Inoue and Benaldi will be into pits soon themselves as well.
Yep, and I want to see how far Ilott is in comparison to the race leaders now. He joined ahead of a few drivers that haven't pitted yet, so just to save the Ilott fans, and once he got by those cars ahead of him, and now remember, they are not moving to the grey side plays, those are back in competition, so Ilott will have to push his way past those cars. It doesn't lose too much time in battling with Adrian Sutil and Jose Maria Lopez. As you can see, the top two now in your picture. Lopez in the life, and further behind we've got Sam Bird in the sack speed, about to be overtaken by Terry McCarthy in the Coloni. McCarthy down the inside into the hairpin, and it's the older Brit that moves ahead of the younger Brit. Now the older Brits having to showcase their skills there, showing that they are no pushovers in this one.
And that was Perry McCarthy almost forcing Sam Bird out of the way as he took 5th place away from his countryman. And Lopez goes into the lead as Adrian Sutil pulls into pits. We've got Benaldi there overtaking Taki Inoue. Let's see if we can catch up there with Adrian Sutil hitting out of the lead. He's also gone for 8 laps of fuel, but a lap later than Ilott, so let's stay with him to see where he comes out in comparison to the LaRousse. We've also got Perry McCarthy now coming into pits as well. He made some very good progress through the field, and Sutil's having to wait for McCarthy. Sutil being held up there as he had to wait for the Coloni to go through. That is not good news for the German if he wants to win this race. So where is he going to come out in comparison to Callum Ilott? Let's try and find Ilott out on track. Here he is in 16th position. Sutil will want to keep that advantage he has over Ilott, but having been held up by Perry McCarthy coming into the pits, and Ilott is under attack here from Robert Wickens. Wickens looking to make his way through the field again, having pitted himself. Wickens leading the race earlier on, having jumped ahead of Sutil from pole position. And Sutil looks to be out ahead of both of them. Yes, Sutil keeps his advantage over the pair despite having been held up by Perry McCarthy there. So I think the HRT team and John Monroe can breathe a sigh of relief there.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Sutil got held up there by the LaRousse that came in, or it may not be the race, it was someone else that was going to yeah, it was lucky to come out ahead of Wickens and Ilott, and I think what saved Sutil partly was because of Ilott and Wickens back in the multi-cover into turn 1, which they played into his hands. Sutil is only a few seconds behind Al Unser Jr., who's in front of him. I don't think Sutil's going to be held up too much by the Swiss driver. I think Al Unser Swiss? You may have to fill me in on that one. Yeah, there's still another round of pit stops to go, so there's still time for things to change before the race ends.
Still plenty of action yet to come here at Watkins Glen. Jose Maria Lopez in the lead with only a couple of laps of fuel on board of his Euro run. I don't think he's going to come into the pits this lap. I think he'll be the lap after. No, I stand corrected. He does come into the pits this lap. Possibly looking to take advantage of Sutil being held up in the pits by Perry McCarthy. Can he get the jump on him? Let's stay with him as he pulls into Euro run pit box. Let's have a check on his pit stop to see how well this guy's. Heidfeld is also in behind him. And Grosjean will take the net lead if he stays out. No, he comes into pits as well. So Sam Bird now progressing. He won't be able to come into pits because his teammate Nick Heidfeld is. That's a 7.6 second pit stop there for Jose Maria Lopez. Bird goes through into the lead, but he is yet to pit. Franchitti and McNish are now in the pits as well, as is Martin Brundle. Now we're going to stay here with Jose Maria Lopez to see where he comes out in comparison to Adrian Sutil. Sutil now going past the main pits, and here he is. While the battle behind him rages between Callum Ilott and Robert Wickens, Sutil rounds the first corner. There was Nick Heidfeld, and Jose Maria Lopez has done it. He is into the lead proper of this race now. except with the exception of Sam Bird and Lee, who's yet to pit. Dale Kvyat is in the fastest lap here from 10th place. Lopez into a comfortable lead now ahead of Adrian Sutil, down in 2nd place. Here is Sam Bird, who we will be expecting into the pits anytime soon. He will be pitting this lap. He's only got 1.6 laps of fuel left, and he will drop down into further reaches of the top 10. But Tom, what an amazing job there from Lopez to keep the lead that he's got.
He has a brilliant in-lap there for Lopez, and for... I was trying to find the team he's going for. There's so many teams on there. You're trying to find
There's
which.
so many new teams to remember. We're trying to get acquainted with this ourselves.
Yes, it's the Eurobron team. That's what I was trying to fill myself in. Yeah, but it was great pit stop work there from the Eurobron team, and for Lopez to go comfortably actually ahead of Adrian Sutil there. He's 3 seconds ahead of the German. I wonder if Sam Bird is going to go on a 1-stop, because if you look on his fuel and what lap we are on the race, is he going to go all on a 1-stop, or is he going to go on a 2 like most of the drivers are?
Well, let's jump back to Sam Bird. He will be into the pits very soon. He's got 1.3 laps of fuel at the moment. We're currently on lap 9 out of the 20, so maybe he is going for the 1-stopper here. So we'll have to wait and see how much fuel the Zach Speed team puts into his car. He now pulls into the pit lane, and his pit crew will go to work. We're going to stay on board with him here and have a look at the digital readouts on the cars there, which tell you the amount of fuel that goes into the car. Currently on 1.2 laps, now down to 1.1. Sam Bird pulls into his pit box. The Zach Speed members will now put fuel into the car. 5 laps of fuel, so he is going for a 2-stopper.
I'm quite surprised by that. They only put 5 laps of fuel, but are they conscious of trying to get to 7.3 seconds, which is a very, very quick stop there for Sam Bird. Where's he going to come out in regards to traffic? As you can see, there's an overtake on, I think that was Nikai being passed by Robert Wickens into turn 1.
Wickens has put in some very good progress recently. He started off the race really well, surging through into the lead. They started to fall down the order when the first stint settled in. Now into the second stint, he seems to have found a bit more speed again, and he's worked his way back up into 3rd place ahead of Nick Heidfeld. Callum Milot still in 2nd place very, very well. And a little bit of a lock up there from Jose Maria Lopez coming into the chicane section. He's able to keep his Euro run going in the right direction, but that will be a little bit of a scary moment there for the Argentine. And another lock up there for Lopez. He might have lost a little bit of his rhythm there with that initial lock up into chicane. So he just needs to settle down, find that rhythm again, and make sure he holds on to this lead.
Yep, and Sam Bird is behind Danny Kvyat to go through sector 1. Callum Milot just a few seconds behind Jose Maria Lopez, and you can see Robert Wickens only just ahead of Nick Heidfeld. So Wickens not able to pull away as far as he wants to from the German.
Well, Nick Heidfeld looks like he's lining up a move on the Leighton House here. We will stick with this battle to see what transpires. And Heidfeld already pulling out of slipstream but ducking back in again. Didn't quite have the momentum coming out of the corner, but can he do an out-braking manoeuvre down into the hairpin here? No, he's not looking at it just yet. Biding his time. He knew that he'd lost some momentum in that previous corner, so now just regrouping, and is now going to go for another assault on the Leighton House when the opportunity next presents itself.
Yeah, can he do it at the next left-hander after this one they've just gone through? It's quite a short run down to it. Let's see if Heidfeld can get the job done there, or is he going to wait until turn 1 on the start-finish straight to pull alongside the Canadian?
Well, he's had another look into the final corner there, but I imagine that if he's going to make a move, it will be into turn 1, although that look into the inside there has ruined his momentum again. He's now fallen back from the Canadian, so Nick Heidfeld will have to get himself back together and get after the Leighton House again. Heidfeld looking at a potential podium here, but he will have to bide his time and make sure he does his overtakes at the right time and at the right moment.
You see Mark Blundell on the pressure from Sam Bird. He's beginning to claw his way back through that. In fact, Bird lost the place to Blundell. I'm not sure what's happened to Bird's place, because he's on fresher tyres and on a nice fuel load than these guys.
Well, Bird has just gone back up the inside of Mark Blundell there into 8th place. Bird on the fresher tyres, as you say, Tom, and he will be looking to make that his advantage as he wants to chase maybe a top 5 position there for the Zach Speed. and Jose Maria Lopez. He continues to lead out in front with a gap of 6.6 seconds ahead of Callum Eilert. And we're now looking at Daniel Kvyat, who is lining up a move on his teammate Roman Grosjean. And Tom, first rule of racing, don't hit your teammate.
No, but it looks like they're going to keep it clean through this part of the circuit, and Kvyat, he's very marginal there with Grosjean there. They're both side by side. Grosjean is pulling front by the look at it, but Kvyat's got the upper hand on that time. He's got to be careful because Grosjean's going to be right on the brink of Sam Bird, who's going to be on faster tyres than Grosjean. And Grosjean's got to hope that Kvyat doesn't hold him up too much. We've only lost 2 drivers in this race so far. I just wonder how many more are going to be dropping out by the end of it.
Well, Tom, now you said that, you know how it goes in the Retro Racing Managers League with jinxes. Someone mentions the word reliability, and the proverbial hits the fan, as it were. So, reliability has been good so far, as you say, Tom, but this is a Retro Racing Managers League, this is a Grand Prix World Series. Reliability has always been a big part of this. We'll just have to wait to see how the rest of the race goes. We're still looking at the Pacifics battling with each other, with Sam Bird behind them for company. The Pacifics don't really want to be racing each other so hard. They want to be able to move up through the field further. And Grosjean's having a look at Kvyat trying to take the place back. He dives down the inside. He absolutely sends it on the Russian and takes back 6th place from his teammate. What an overtake that was from Grosjean to take 6th place.
Was, and whilst you say that, Callum Eilert's just lost 2 places, and this is why.
And Callum Eilert pulling over. It is a water leak for the Brit, and that is both LaRouses out of the pre-season festival. Will Knight will not be at all happy with that. That is a real shame there for Callum Eilert and for Alexander Rossi earlier. And we've lost one of the potential race challengers from this.
Yeah, and there's nothing saying that for Will Knight, that at least it's the pre-season festival. And what that does confirm, actually, once all the cars have gone past him, is that the Roos cars will have the numbers, was it 26 cars in there, so 52 and 53 if I'm correct?
Well no, because I thought about this earlier on, and they are going to be assigned numbers 1 through 27, with number 13 being excluded because of superstition reasons. It will be tier 2, so the winning team out of this will take the number 1 and the number 2 for the tier 2 championship. So that confirms numbers 26 and 27 for the LaRousse team, and we're expecting that particular team, Tom, to be one of the front runners for this season.
Yeah, and if they keep having problems like this over the course of the campaign, then they are going to be struggling. And I suppose with it being tier 2, you know, you can't get relegated from tier 2, you can only get promoted or stay in there. So you can see Scott Speed
having a bit of an issue down there into chicane, a bit of a lock-up as he fights with Mark Blundell. Speed looking to get that Real into... sorry, not the Real. What am I on about? Looking to get the Modena up into the top 10 of this race. And he's not really going to do it by doing that sort of shenanigans and locking up, is he? He is fighting Mark Blundell in the life. He's right behind the Englishman here, so hopefully we will see an overtake here from Scott Speed, looking to break into top 10. And look at the lead that Jose Maria Lopez has, 9.5 seconds ahead of Nick Heidfeld. Lopez is running away with this.
Was he 9.5 seconds clear now with Nick Heidfeld in second, and with Callum Eilert dropping out of the race, Terry McCarthy has now moved up into 4th place, and comfortably so ahead of Roman Grosjean, who's under pressure from Sam Bird, and this is Lopez coming into his second stop.
So this is why Lopez might have been so quick in comparison, so he's behind him. He's on a lighter fuel load, and he's the first of them into the pits. This should see him through to the end. Let's jump back to Lopez to see how much fuel he puts in. We're on lap 13, and 10 laps of fuel goes in, so Lopez is now going to the end of the race, and he'll be hoping to keep that 9.5 second lead that he built up. McCarthy comes into the pits as well for 4th place, and let's jump on board with him. He had 2 laps of fuel left, pulls into the Colonia pit box, and he's also going through to the end, so we're now seeing the potential race-defining pit stops here, Tom.
Yeah, very, very busy pit lane. I mean, this is the problem when you have a shortened race. You know, so many drivers coming in the same lap at the same time. And it's 9.3 there for... I couldn't quite tell who it was. Was it?
That was Perry McCarthy.
Was it Perry McCarthy? Yeah, that was a very long pit stop actually, but yeah. So Robert Wickens, see there in the sole surviving Leighton House, in second place behind race leader Nick Heifeld. Now, Jose Maria Lopez will be joined in 7th place by the looks of it, ahead of Mike Conway. I don't know how far he is off Mark Blundell. I don't think it's too far off him. So, but with Lopez only 19 seconds off Nick Heifeld, he should rejoin. He should be in the lead once everyone is stopped. And providing there's no mechanical issues, I can't see him not winning.
Well, here is Mark Blundell, who is on the back of Scott Speed up into 5th place through this pit stop race at the moment, so don't take that position as granted just yet. We still have quite a few pit stops to go here. The order being shaken up a bit as people go for different fuel strategies, and we're now about 7 laps from the end of this race. Jose Maria Lopez is looking to be an odds-on favourite for the win at the moment, but of course he's got to get to the end of the race first. We're now looking at Nick Heidfeld, who is in the lead at the moment, but he is yet to pit for his final pit stop, and he's got 3 laps of fuel on board at the moment, so he will be going on for another lap, maybe 2 before he comes in. Robert Wickens has got a lap less than Nick Heidfeld, so he could potentially be coming in on this lap. Daniel Kvyat is on a similar fuel strategy to Robert Wickens ahead of him, as is Alan McNish in 4th place. Scott Speed a lap further as well. So some differing tyre strategies here, some different fuel strategies. This race isn't over yet, Tom. We still don't know for sure who's going to win this. Lopez does have a good net lead, but he does have to get to the end of the race first.
Yep, and Wickens is in the pits now for the Leighton House team, as is Kvyat. So we want to keep an eye on the times actually. It's also got McNish is in the pits as well. So Heifeld and Speed are 1 and 2. Blundell is 3rd. I think there's a bit of kind of fast Blundell on the straight.
So looking at Daniel Kvyat, 9 laps of fuel into his Pacific. Let's have a look at the time and see how much time he spent in the pit lane. He's getting stuck a little bit there behind some of the other drivers coming through. And looking in the mirror there, he's been held up there by Alan McNish, and was there some contact there? Was that my imagination? Looked like he might have had a little bit of a nudge on something. Let's just get a quick replay on that, unless my eyes were deceiving me. So Alan McNish, we're looking at now, he's also got 9 laps of fuel on board of his car going to the end. He just about beats Daniel Kvyat out, so Kvyat has to wait. And yeah, a little bit of a nudge there or something. Is it surrounding a car? So Tom, maybe is he tripped up over some pit equipment or something?
I don't know if it's like very hard to know. It's like a jack or something, or maybe he just hit a tyre as he was leaving the pits. But here's Mark Blundell battling it out with Scott Speed on one of the back straights there.
And Mark Blundell takes 2nd place off as Scott Speed and makes way through, and Lopez is getting held up here by this fighting duo. Blundell and Speed still have to come into the pit. This is not doing Lopez any favours whatsoever. Lopez wants to clear this duo and get off after a race win, but he's now made a mistake through the chicane section by virtue of the 2 in front of him fighting it over the same piece of tarmac. Lopez closing up to the back of them again. Scott Speed looking to get past Mark Blundell again. And Lopez, I mean, he is really not happy with these 2 fighting out in front of him. Could this maybe give some sort of advantage to Nick Heidfeld, who will be making a later pit stop than everyone else? This is affecting Lopez's chances to keep the net lead of the race. Lopez pulls out of the slipstream. Scott Speed has to duck back in again. His momentum has been ruined out of that corner by Speed and Blundell fighting it out in front of him. And yeah, Lopez really angry at this point up.
Yeah, he is, and I wouldn't get too worried about it just at the moment, because by the time Heifeld does come in for his last stop, he'll be around about 10 seconds behind Lopez once he exits the pits. And this is Perry McCarthy behind Enrique Bernoldi, but that's it, and Heifeld's in the pits now.
So Heidfeld has come into pit lane, looking to make up any advantage he can off Lopez. I don't think Heidfeld is going to keep the lead here, so the 3 behind him will go through unless Blundell and Speed pit as well. Lopez should assume the lead of the race, which he does. But looks like Heidfeld's still in the pits. It's a 9.7 pit stop there for the German. Not the fastest we've seen, but with Lopez being held up by the duo there, and Heidfeld now on the fresher
could, and Sutfield's gone past Highfield. Highfield could be joining ahead of Wickens, I wonder.
Well, there is Suttle going through into second. Let's have a look at Heidfeld again, and yes, there is Wickens behind us. I think Heidfeld holds on to third place on the fresher tyres ahead of Robert Wickens. Wickens was looking good for a podium earlier on, but fell back in the first stages of the race. He's done well to make up some ground on it since, but a podium now looking to be a little bit of an uphill challenge with the gap that Heidfeld has in front of him.
So looking at the times at the moment, Lopez is 8.7 clear of Adrian Suttil. So it's a comfortable lead, I would say, for Lopez. And this is Neil Yarni. Haven't seen too much from him in this event. Under pressure from one of the Pacifics, that is Danny Kvyat. So he's in a Pacific sandwich at the moment, is the Swiss driver.
Well, it looks like that sandwich filling is about to fall out now, as we've cut away from it, unfortunately. But Dale Kvyat makes a move on Jarni, so it is now the Pacific's running line astern again, and Kvyat with a little bit of a lock up there, carried too much speed through the second part of the chicanes, but he has completed the move now on Neil Jarni.
So I think Pacific is going to be one of the things to look out for this season. I'm actually banking on them to do really, really well. We've seen it from this event. As you can see, the Force India, what looked like Al Onsa Jr. falling into the clutches. Is that Cristiano D'Amata who's behind him? Or is that Enrique? It is, yeah. Oh no, it might have been Alex Zanardi was on about actually. Or
I think
something.
it was Zanardi, yeah. Just looking down in the further reaches of the order, we have had 3 retirements. Alexander Wurz was the first to go out with a gearbox issue on a later house, and then an unfortunate double retirement from the LaRousse outfit. Alexander Rossi dropping out of the race with a gearbox issue of his own, and Callum Eilocks with a water leak. It was unfortunate for Will Knight's team, but don't forget there are no championship points on offer for this race, so nothing really lost for Will Knight. He's still got the rest of the season to look forward to, and with that race now completed for him, maybe he's thinking he should focus a bit more on reliability for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't want to be pushing the car too soon. I mean, with it being a pre-season race, I mean, you don't want to be taking too much life out of the cars. And you can see Lopez beginning to pull out more of a gap on Adrian Suttil, who's in second place, 9.5 seconds off the Eurobron. And this I got in instead of Robert Wickens in the Leighton House, followed by Perry McCarthy's Coloni, Al McNish in the, I don't remember which team driver is racing for, but Al McNish is in the Coloni as well. So McCarthy and McNish in 5th and 6th in the Colonis, then it's Rojan and Kvyat in the Pacifics, Neil Yarni in the Real in 10th position, is Sam Bird in the Saxby.
And we're currently looking at AJ Foyt, the 85-year-old who has been entered in by Paul Twemlow for this season. And we said earlier on in the broadcast time that we weren't really expecting too much of him in this race, but he is running last out of the remaining runners. But give him his due credit, Tom. He's only a couple of seconds behind Vincenzo Sospiri. He's actually not that far off the pace.
No, he's not. I mean, he's got 5 laps to go, or 4 laps to go of this one. And don't think it'll end up being a lap down by the end of it, but it's got a lot to learn throughout the season, haven't we? And I think managers, in terms of how often they can switch drivers over the course of the season, I think we do have regulations for that, don't we? Which you might want to
I would have to have a look through my regulation book. I cannot remember that one off the top of my head, but I do believe you are correct. There is a regulation in place for the number of mid-season driver changes you can do. I just can't remember that exact number off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
So that's something we can look at for when the championship does get underway at Vancouver. And for the Tier 2 teams, I think they do the same distance races as Tier 1 does, don't they?
No, Tier 2 races actually run to 50% race distance, a little bit of a shorter one for them, and then the main Tier 1 race goes to 100% race distance, so we'd be running 20 laps for this particular race at the moment. The Tier 1 race would be 40 laps if we were running at Watkins Glen in this particular configuration. But yeah, a bit of a shorter race for the Tier 2 teams.
That's fair enough, I suppose. You know, it being the Grand Prix itself, it should be the big event, really. The Tier 2 teams are sort of fighting to try to get into the Tier 1 category for the following season. As you can see, the two Pacifics going toe-to-toe once again. This could be one of the talking points of the season, actually. The two Pacific drivers going toe to toe once again. Grosjean, also getting ahead of Grosjean into the 10th position. Riding on board here with Topher and Maria Lopez.
I think I've lost count of the number of times that those Pacifics have overtaken each other. They've been right at each other for pretty much the entire race distance so far. And I think you're right, Tom, that could be a season-long battle between those two. And just imagine if the Pacific turns out to be the front-running team and they're fighting for the championship between them. We could be in for some absolute fireworks there from Carson McColman's team.
Good. And I'm sure he'll be hoping to see that Kvyat and Grosjean in the frame the race wins this season. As Jose Maria Lopez over 10 seconds clear now of Adrian Sutil. Then it's Nick Heidfeld third. And this is Mark Blundell passing away with Sam Bird, who I believe has just got ahead of him.
Yes, I believe you are correct on Bird getting ahead of Blundell. We missed that off camera. This is a good gaggle of cars we've got going on here. So they've also got Neil Jarney and Scott Speed behind them. It's a four-way battle for 9th place at the moment. Sam Bird in the Zach Speed heading that particular battle. And with the amount of slipstream that Sam Bird is going to be giving off, we could see an overtake into the next corner. Mark Blundell, look at him, and AJ Foy has pulled off. AJ Foy was running really well down lower reaches, but he's had a transmission problem and unfortunately is out of this Grand Prix. A shame for the 85-year-old. Just a handful of laps from the end. He did really well to get as far as he did. We'll have to wait and see how he does over the course of the season, but I think he did a lot better than we were giving him credit for, Tom.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he's done a respectable job, given his age, and it's a shame he's pulled off there with the transmission problem. But yeah, this race not counted for anything anyway, so better to have the problems in this one than it is in the real championship. Scott Speed backing out with Sam Bird, who has lost position to Mark Blundell, so Sam Bird not having a good final stint like his teammate is doing. In fact, Nick Heidfeld is only just over a second off Adrian Sutil. That's probably one of the best to look out for in the last couple of laps of this one. Nick Heidfeld, you can see there.
Heidfeld is closing in on Adrian Sutil. We could get a fight for second place in the last few laps. Unfortunately, while we were watching AJ Foyt pull off to the side of the road, we did miss that battle between Mark Blundell and Sam Bird. I'm expecting a few more positions to change before the end of this 20-lap race. We are now on lap 18 out of 20. We're getting very close to the end. And this is a slow Alan McNish. Alan McNish has a loose wheel, and at this point in the replay it has already happened. You can see it's the rear left that is flapping around on the Coloni. That is a shame for Alan McNish, but not all is lost for the team, as Perry McCarthy is still running in 5th place. So he is still on course to get himself and his team some of the higher driver numbers that are available. Alan McNish, he pulls off to the side of the road. His race has run its course, but not all is lost for the Coloni team. Perry McCarthy, his teammate, still running in 5th place.
It's a real shame there for McNish, on course for a good result. A question I've got to ask as well is, when the car numbers are put on these machines, is it possible to put them on the liveries?
It is very possible. One of the beautiful things about Grand Prix 2 is the editing capabilities that this program has. So, as well as being able to program in the power outputs, which is how we calculate the different engine capabilities of each team, how we calculate their power inputs, their reliability inputs, that is all calculated within one program called GP2 Edit. And you can also use that same program to affect the liveries as well. So yes, Tom, it is very possible to put the car numbers onto different liveries. And you know what? After this race is finished, I think I might make a start on that.
Yep, this is something to do whilst we're in lockdown 3 over here in the UK. Not the best of times, but hey, if there's anything that makes my day, Director Racing Managers League is something that I would highly recommend getting involved in. If you are very, very new to this, or if you know any friends that want to get involved in the Director Racing Managers League, whether it's in the Grand Prix World Series, the Grand Prix 2 World Championship, or any of the other categories like the IndyCar, because we've got IndyCar, haven't we, Topher?
Yes, we do. We have a number of different series that are in the pipeline. IndyCar is one that is coming up soon. We don't have an exact date on it yet, but it is in the pipeline. We do already have some team managers signed signed up to it. We already have some drivers who have been signed to those teams. If you are interested in being a team manager, not just in the Grand Prix World Series, but in the Formula 1 World Championship, in IndyCar, or in any of the other series we're doing, please get in touch, send us an email, drop a comment onto this YouTube chat, let us know you want to be a part of it, and we'll get you involved.
So going back to the racing, Mark Blundell has just gone past Roman Grosjean in 7th place, and this is Adrian Swift on Nick Heidfeld. This is a battle we had been anticipating. And top speed going toe to toe with Neil Yarni.
Plenty of battles going on up and down the field as we're now on the penultimate lap of this pre-season festival around Watkins Glen. We have a battle at the front between Adrian Suttil and Nick Heidfeld. We now cut back to Heidfeld, who's chasing down Suttil. Lost a bit of speed through the chicane section as he had a look down the inside of the HRT, and we're now looking at Neil Jarney under pressure from his teammate Mike Conway, and he's cut off his British teammate, stopped him from getting any sort of momentum through into 11th place. Neil Jarney holds on to position, one position away from the top 10 finish. He's running right to Scott Speed. Will he make an assault onto that top 10 position towards the end? We're now looking back from Adrian Suttil's HRT. Can't quite see Heidfeld behind him because of the rear wing plate. But Heidfeld, he is there, he is threatening, and he wants second place.
We're going to start the final lap, which he is about to do now. You can definitely see Nick Heidfeld there in the background, looking back up to Adrian Suttil. He's not going to have too many more opportunities. There's Lopez there, starting his final lap in the lead. Shouldn't have too many issues.
Well, you say that, Tom. Don't ever say that in the Retro Racing Managers League. We all know what's happened in previous series we've done. Remember the Group C challenge? We had cars run out of fuel on the final corner of the final lap. And also earlier on this year, in the Formula 1 World Championship, Ayrton Senna looking like a certain victor at the Canadian Grand Prix, retired at the last corner. You just don't know the result until they have all crossed the line. Lopez does look to be on course for what essentially has been a dominant victory here. Going through the pit stop phase of the earlier scrambles for position, Lopez now has a lead of 12 seconds. And looking now at Nick Heidfeld, he's lining up for another assault on Adrian Suttil, and can he steal that second place on the final lap? Well, we're now looking at Scott Speed under attack from Neil Jarney. Jarney wanted that 10th place, and it looks like he's got it, has he? And oh, we've got an engine blow up there.
That's a HRT as well, Dario Franchitti.
Dario Franchitti having an engine problem as he starts the final lap of the race. I mean, if Suttil does indeed make it across the line in second or maybe even third, it's not the end of the world for the HRT team, but that is not what John Monroe will want to see. One of his cars retiring with an engine problem, and so close to the end as well. And the car is now on fire. He needs to get that car off to the side of the circuit, get off the racing line, and just pull it over. He might try and go to the end if he can, but his speed is, of course, going to be affected now. He's got Marcus Winkelhock coming up on the back of him. That's Alex Zanardi in the Force India further back in the shot as well. Dario Franchitti on fire and trying to get to the end here if he can.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to have as much as going to make it with all that. I mean, it's a long lap as well as Watkins Glen. But this is Adrian Suttil, hopefully. And this is Nick Heidfeld going to go down the inside of Suttil, and he's got the job done.
He's done it. Nick Heidfeld was biding his time. He got back into flow, close up to the back of Suttil. He's made way in second place. Grosjean having a bit of a moment there. But we're now going to look to the front. Here is Jose Maria Lopez, about to turn a final corner. This has been a dominant victory for the Argentine in the pre-season festival. He comes out of the final corner, surges to the line. Jose Maria Lopez wins the pre-season festival. It is the first win of the season for the Eurobrun team led by David Junt, and that is going to set him up very well for the season ahead. And that earns the Eurobrun team the Tier 2 numbers 1 and 2. Nick Heidfeld there stealing second place, and will take the 3 and the 4 for Zach Speed. Suttil, a very fine drive from him, but he folds on for third place. That'll be 5 and 6 for HRT. Wickens comes home fourth place. That is 7 and 8 for Leightonhouse. And McCarthy, what a drive from him to earn numbers 9 and 10 for Scuderia Coloni. We didn't give McCarthy much of a hope earlier on. We were saying he might be down in the lower reaches of the field earlier on. But Tommy's just come home in 5th place.
Not too bad indeed, and Fiat crossing the line in 6th. That's the Pacific team's numbers of 11 and 12 for them. Mark Blundell. And in fact, Grosjean's phone, has he had a problem on the last lap there? Looks like it.
Yes, Grosjean has had a transmission problem as he crosses the line. Like, it doesn't matter too much as Kvyat had already crossed the line in 6th place to get the 11 and the 12 for Pacific Grand Prix. Grosjean has a gearbox issue. As he crosses the finish line, he's pulled it off over to tyre barriers and has exited the car. But what a way to end that race for Carter McCollum with a DNF as he crosses the line. He is still classified in 8th place, obviously, but maybe some reliability work that needs to be done there by the Pacific team.
Yeah, well, at least the race is over now for the drivers there we go, race over.
Well, the race is now officially over. All teams have crossed the line. And Tom, what a race that was. I highly enjoyed that. Let's run you through the order then after that. Jose Maria Lopez takes the victory for the Eurobrun Mazda outfit. That is numbers 1 and 2 for himself and for Marcus Winkelhock, who finished down in 13th place. Nick Heidfeld taking Adrian Sutil on the final lap. What a move that was from the German. Robert Wickens, strong earlier on, took the lead off the line, but in the end came home in 4th place. There was a good race there from the Canadian. Leighton House will take numbers 7 and 8 for the season. Perry McCarthy very strong in 5th place, ahead of Daniel Kvyat, who outdoes his teammate Grosjean in the Battle of the Pacifics. He takes 6th place. Blundell, the Meat and the Pacific Sandwich, in 7th. Grosjean 8th. Sam Bird in 9th in the other Zach Speed, and Neil Jarney 10th in the Real. Outside of the top 10, Scott Speed comes home in 11th place, ahead of Mike Conway. Marcus Winkelhock 13th place, but will take the number 2 onto his car. Alex Zanardi in 14th, ahead of Brundle, Damata Benoldi, Alonso Jr., Vincenzo Sospiri and Taki Inoue, the last of the runners on the lead lap. Dario Franchitti retiring 1 lap from the end. McNish also dropping out towards the end. And then gearbox issues for AJ Foyt, Alexander Rossi and Alexander Wurz, while Callum Ilott had a water leak. And, well, what a race that was, Tom. There's action going on all over the place. Now to all that, Jose Maria Lopez also takes the fastest lap of 1 minute 46.4 for the Argentine. But Tom, a lot going on there, lots of overtakes, a few retirements as well. Give us your thoughts on that race.
Well, I think this is very much a taste of what's to come for the campaign, really. And now that we've got a taste of the Tier 2 category, I just hope that we're going to be in some very, very close racing throughout the season. And, Vancouver, the very first one of the championship, I think with what the drivers have experienced here today, I think they're going to be in for a cracking battle as the season goes on.
I completely agree with you, Tom. I cannot wait for the season to get underway. That was just a taster of what is to come in the Grand Prix World Series for Season 2. Join us again next week where we will be racing around the streets of Vancouver in Canada for Round 1. Tune in then. Thank you for watching. From myself and from Tom Kent, goodbye.